Boker Tov. I would like to tell you about Steve, the assistant camp director during my first year on staff at camp. He could talk and joke with everyone of all ages, commanded attention, listened to people's problems, and did not look down on anyone. He put a positive spin on my camp experience, which made me come back for 7 more years, get trained in rock climbing, practice public speaking, and more. I can safely say that I would not be who I am today if it were not for him and his leadership. The challenges and effects of leadership are found throughout Mikkeitz, this week's Parshat, especially those of 2 brothers, Reuben and Judah. Reuben was the eldest son of Jacob, the one who should have been appointed leader. Yet time and time again, it is not Reuben but Judah who steps up and shows true leadership. What was it about Judah that made him a leader? What was it about Reuben that made him fall short? And what sort of impact did their acts of leadership have on others? While many commentators say that Reuben's downfall was when he laid with Bilhah, I think that it goes beyond this, that it goes to his very character. Time and time again he shows good intentions, but unfortunately it is not enough. In last week's portion, we have the story of Joseph's brothers plotting against him. When they first mention killing him, it is Reuben who says, "Let us not kill him, shed no blood." Despite many commentators saying that it should not be, "let us not," but rather a commanding, "we shall not," his brothers do not respond to him. No one agrees, no one listens. Later in this week's portion, the brothers return from Egypt and try to convince their father to let Benjamin go back with them to Egypt. Reuben tries his best at convincing Jacob, saying, "Et shenei vanai tamit im lo avienu elecha," slay my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Yet despite his best efforts, his father refuses. Ibn Ezra commented that Reuben spoke inappropriately, and had he spoken appropriately, then Jacob would not have remained silent to his proposal. Similarly, Rashi says that Jacob did not accept Reuben's word because he was a bechor shoteh, a foolish firstborn son. Even his own father considered him foolish. Compare all of this to Judah, who repeatedly takes a strong leadership role. When the brothers are debating killing Joseph, it is Judah who steps up and suggests selling him to the Ishmaelites. Unlike with Reuben's suggestion, here his brothers agreed with him. In this week's portion, Judah again asserts his leadership, and, unlike Reuben, succeeds in convincing their father. "Shelcha hana'ar iti v'nakuma v'nelecha." Send the boy in my care, and we will rise and go. I myself will be surety for him. You may hold me responsible. If I do not bring him back before you and set him before you, I shall stand guilty before you forever. Is this not completely opposite from Reuben's plea? Whereas Reuben tried to be responsible by putting the punishment on his sons, Judah put the responsibility on himself. In verse 9 he says, "Anochi ervenu." I myself will be surety. The Anochi is grammatically unnecessary, yet it is there to emphasize that he says, I personally will be responsible. Thus we can see that Judah is markedly different from Reuben. Reuben's heart might have been in the right place, but he could just not compete with Judah's leadership. Judah was a charismatic leader, and as I'm sure we all know, charismatic leaders are found throughout Jewish history. The judges, the medieval Kabbalists, and Hasidic Rebbes were all charismatic leaders. Even Shabtai Tzvi was a charismatic leader. Yet charisma is not the only leadership style in Jewish tradition. There is, of course, the model of divine election where God alone chose the leader, such as the patriarchs. There are also more earthly models. In the Bavli, Bava Metzia 84a, there is a story of Rabbi Yochanan bar Nafcha, who was so attractive that people would just flock to him and follow him. Yet the Talmud preferred Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, whose first leadership act was to open the doors of the Beit Midrash to all students, not just the elite. Elazar's leadership was defined by action and inclusivity, not just charisma. Yet, even great leadership can have unexpected consequences. Take Judah Maccabee. He was a charismatic leader who led countless Judeans against the Greeks and eventually set up the Hasmonean kingdom. He was quite literally a Judah, not a Reuben. But if we skip ahead 200 years, what do we find? The destruction of the temple. Did he ever ask himself, what will my actions mean for the future of my people? Not just in the next few years, but also way down the road. This is a question that has been on my mind a lot. especially now that my eyes have been opened up to the wider world of Reform Judaism beyond my hometown congregation. It used to be that I knew exactly what sort of rabbi I wanted to be. If I pictured my path, it was a straight line. But now, there are dozens of paths. And it's not just my path, but all of our paths, and the path of Reform Judaism. Because in these past few months, I've really come to internalize something. We are the current and future leaders of Reform Judaism. I'm sure we all know this, that's why we're here, but I want us to take a moment and let it really sink in. What we do in the future will impact both Reform and world Jewry. You, me, us. Think about it. We will be the ones to help decide critical issues. Does Reform Judaism support officiating mixed marriages? What will the future status of halakha be? What will we teach? How will we sing? What will our children's children see when they look at Reform Judaism? For all we know, we could make decisions that double Reform membership. Or we might split the movement. Ultimately, it boils down to this. Are we going to be like Reuben, with good intentions, but ineffective? Or are we going to be like Judah, strong and in command? Or are we going to be like Judah Maccabee, who took charge and led the Judeans to freedom, which led to the destruction of life as they knew it? My question to all of us, myself included, is, what sort of leaders will we be? HUC-JIR.